Death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back. Take a moment. Let those words sink in. What's your immediate reaction? A slight chill down your spine? Confusion? It sounds like the sentiment of a deep pessimist, someone who has resigned themselves to a terrible, inevitable fate. It sounds like a surrender. But what if I told you that this is actually one of the most profoundly life-affirming and powerful ideas ever expressed? What if this isn't a formula for despair, but the ultimate key to living a truly fearless, meaningful life? Today, we are going to unpack this famous quote, often attributed to the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, and I promise you, by the end of this discussion, you will understand why smiling back at death is not a sign of defeat, but perhaps the greatest act of courage, an act that can free you to live a truly abundant and meaningful life. Ready to redefine humanity's ultimate fear? Let's dive in. Before we dissect the quote itself, let's paint a quick portrait of its supposed author, Marcus Aurelius. We know his name from history books. He was one of Rome's 5 good emperors, ruling during the 2nd century AD. But he wasn't just a ruler. Picture the most powerful man on earth, who every single night, after a grueling day, managing a vast empire, waging wars, and battling a devastating plague, would sit down and write in his personal journal. He wasn't writing for publication or for posterity. He was writing strictly for himself, as a series of reminders on how to be better, fairer, and wiser. This journal is what we know today as Meditations, or To Myself. It remains one of the greatest monuments of Stoic philosophy. And what exactly is Stoicism? Simply put, it isn't some obscure theory. It is a practical operating manual for life itself. Stoics believed the main goal was to live virtuously and in harmony with nature. They taught us to focus only on what we can control, our thoughts, our judgments, and our actions, and to accept everything else. For Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism wasn't a hobby, it was a survival tool, and his writings on death aren't the musings of a distant theorist. They are the hard-won lessons of a man who faced chaos head-on every single day. Let's begin with the first part of the famous phrase, "Death smiles at all of us." There is a profound truth embedded in these simple words. Death is the great equalizer. It makes no distinction between the rich and the poor, the emperor and the slave, the genius and the ordinary person. It is the universal condition of our existence. For the Stoics, embracing this truth was the very first step toward wisdom. We spend so much energy trying to stand out, trying to prove our uniqueness, and trying to build walls between ourselves and others. But in the face of death, all those differences simply melt away. This isn't a cause for despair. On the contrary, it is a foundation for compassion and unity. If we all share the same final destination, shouldn't we be kinder to one another along the way? Imagine a gallery of portraits, the stern Roman legionary, the medieval peasant, Queen Victoria, the modern tech worker. Death smiles upon every single one of them. This realization lifts the weight of false ambitions off our shoulders and helps us focus on our shared humanity. But why is it that death smiles? The word itself might strike us as odd, even sinister. However, from the Stoic perspective, the smile of death holds no malice or cruelty. It is instead the smile of nature itself, serene, neutral, much like the expression of the Mona Lisa. Death is neither an evil nor a punishment. It is simply a process, as natural as birth, growth, or the changing of the seasons. Leaves fall from the trees to make room for new growth. Stars burn out so that new worlds may be born from their dust. We are an inherent part of this grand cycle. To fear death is akin to fearing the sunset. It demonstrates a profound misunderstanding of the nature of things. The smile of death is a steady reminder that we are subject to the same laws that govern the entire universe. And in this adherence, there is a certain majesty and peace. It is not an enemy to be fought, but a stage of the process that must be embraced. Now let's turn to the most critical part of the quote, the phrase, "All that remains for us is," that small transition, completely changes the meaning of the entire statement. It shifts the focus from what is outside our influence to what is entirely within our control. This is the heart of Stoicism itself, the famous dichotomy of control. The Stoics separated everything in the world into two essential categories: things we can control and things we cannot. The weather, the economy, the opinions of other people, and crucially, the fact of our own mortality, all of this is definitively beyond our reach. To try and change them is simply to doom ourselves to frustration and pain. But there is one thing that absolutely no one can take away: our power of choice, our attitude, our reaction to the events around us. Death is inevitable. It is a fact of existence. But how we choose to face it, with fear and tears, or with dignity and profound calm, that remains entirely up to us. And in that choice, we find the totality of our freedom. And so, we reach the conclusion: smile back. What kind of smile is this? It is not a smile of joy or of carefree delight. No one is suggesting you should feel happiness at the thought of the end. This is a smile of understanding, a smile of acceptance, a smile of sheer courage. It is a silent dialogue with the inevitable. Death whispers, "I am coming for you." And you smile back, replying, "I know, but that won't stop me from living this day with dignity. You will not force me to shrink in terror or abandon my duty." Imagine a gladiator in the arena. He knows he might fall, yet he looks at his opponent, at the emperor, at the assembled crowd, and he smiles. That smile is a pure demonstration of his inner strength. He may not control the fight's outcome, but he absolutely controls himself. To smile back at death means only one thing: to live your life in such a way that you have nothing to regret when the final moment arrives. This entire concept is perfectly encapsulated in one of the key Stoic practices, Memento Mori, which translated from Latin means, "Remember you must die." This isn't a depressing slogan. It's an extremely powerful tool for improving your life. In ancient times, when a victorious Roman general returned home in triumph, he had a designated slave standing behind him. This slave would whisper in his ear, "Memento Mori." Why? So that even in his moment of greatest glory, the general would not forget that he was merely a mortal man. This practice teaches us to stop postponing our lives. It acts as a crucial filter for our desires and actions. Before you spend an hour arguing meaninglessly on the internet, ask yourself this question: if I knew today was my last day, would this be how I choose to spend it? Remembering death is not about obsessing over the end. It is a tool for living a truly conscious and fulfilled life. It might seem paradoxical, but regularly contemplating your own mortality actually makes life richer and more vibrant. Steve Jobs, in his famous commencement speech at Stanford, said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." Why is this the case? Because when you face the inevitability of death, all the trivialities melt away, the expectations of others, vanity, and the fear of failure. Only what truly matters remains. You stop sweating the small stuff. You find the courage to finally call your parents, launch that long-dreamed-of project, or simply tell someone you love them. Recognizing the finite nature of time transforms every day from just another calendar page into a priceless gift. You truly begin to appreciate the simple things: the taste of your morning coffee, a meaningful conversation with a friend, or the warmth of the sun on your face. Let's clear up a popular misconception. A lot of people believe that Stoics were nothing more than emotionless robots who completely suppressed all their feelings. This is absolutely wrong. Stoicism isn't about the absence of emotion. It's about mastering them. Stoics were never trying to eliminate joy, love, or compassion. Instead, they aimed to get rid of destructive, irrational emotions, things like uncontrolled anger, envy, and most importantly, crippling existential fear. Their ideal wasn't indifference or coldness, but inner tranquility, a state of imperturbability they called apatheia. This is crucial. They didn't mean apathy in the modern sense, but freedom from destructive passions. To smile back at death isn't about suppressing fear. It's about acknowledging that fear, recognizing its potential irrationality, and refusing to allow it to control your life. What is the alternative to this philosophy? What happens if we choose not to embrace it? The alternative is the way most people live, in constant, unconscious dread of mortality. We refuse to discuss it, we refuse to think about it, and we avoid the subject entirely. We pretend that we have an eternity stretching out before us, and what does that pretense cost us? We procrastinate on our most important tasks. We stay in jobs we hate because we're terrified of change. We cling to toxic relationships. We spend decades chasing possessions that bring us no real joy. This subconscious fear paralyzes us. It forces us to live a small, cautious, and ultimately compromised life. The central irony is this: in fearing death, we are actually fearing life. The refusal to meet death face to face is the ultimate refusal of an authentic existence. For the Stoic, the chief aim of life is virtue itself. This means living in alignment with reason and our truest, highest nature. Marcus Aurelius consistently reminded himself of the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Furthermore, the constant awareness of our own mortality is the strongest catalyst for living a virtuous life. Why bother being just if you can deceive others and gain an advantage? Because our time here is brief, and the only thing that truly matters is living it honourably. Why be courageous and risk something? Because a life devoid of bold action is hardly a life at all. The awareness of death forces us to ask the right questions. What kind of person do I want to be with the time I have been granted? What legacy will I leave behind? Not in material possessions, but through the example I set and the influence I have on others. The answers to these questions are what ultimately shape a virtuous life. To truly grasp the depth of this philosophy, we must first consider the personal context of Marcus Aurelius. He didn't write his meditations in the quiet halls of an academic school. He wrote them instead in a military tent while leading campaigns on the empire's troubled frontiers. He spent nearly 2 decades of his rule embroiled in conflict. He survived the devastating Antonine Plague, a pandemic that claimed millions of lives. He buried his wife and, tragically, at least 8 of his 13 children. Death was his constant companion. His philosophy wasn't theoretical. It was forged in the fires of actual suffering. When he wrote about calmly accepting the inevitable, he wasn't discussing abstract concepts. He was talking about the pain of losing those closest to him. When he wrote about duty and courage, he was actively leading his legions into combat. This means his words aren't just beautiful theories. They are a battle-tested blueprint for retaining one's humanity in the most truly inhuman conditions. The Stoics didn't just leave us ideas. They also gave us concrete exercises for the mind. One of the most powerful is called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius practiced this often. The concept is simple. When you feel anxious or stressed, imagine yourself rising high above the earth. You see your city, then your country, and eventually the entire planet, a small blue marble suspended in the infinite blackness of space. Now try to find yourself and your problem on that tiny sphere. It seems pretty insignificant now, doesn't it? Next, visualize the infinite timeline, stretching endlessly into the past and the future. Where does your brief life register on that scale? This exercise isn't meant to make you feel worthless or insignificant. It's designed to help you gain perspective. Against the backdrop of eternity and infinity, our fears, including the fear of death, lose their sharp edge and their power over us. Another powerful Stoic exercise is negative visualization. While the name sounds intimidating, it's actually an incredibly beneficial practice. The core idea is to intentionally pause and imagine that you have already lost the things you value most. Imagine for a moment. Your home is gone. Your job vanishes. Your loved ones are no longer with you. Then snap back to reality and feel the profound relief and gratitude that you still possess all these things. This exercise works in 2 main ways. First, it teaches us to deeply appreciate what we have, right here and right now, instead of taking it for granted. Second, it psychologically prepares us for loss, because let's face it, loss is a fundamental and unavoidable part of life. By proactively considering the worst-case scenario, we strip it of its emotional shock value. Should that scenario occur, we meet it not with panic, but with a trained, prepared mind. The same principle applies to our own mortality. By accepting the end, we learn to truly value every single moment we have left. The principle of smiling back isn't just applicable to the concept of death. It is a universal strategy for facing any life difficulty that falls outside of our control. Did your boss criticize you unfairly? Smile back and let that motivate you to do even better work. Did a friend betray you? Smile back and take that as a vital lesson about human nature. Did you fail an important project? Smile back, start over, and apply the wisdom you have gained. This smile is not a sign of passivity or surrender. It is a declaration of internal control. You cannot control external events, but you can always control your reaction to them. Instead of giving in to anger, resentment, or despair, you choose calm, dignity, and constructive action. This choice transforms any problem from an insurmountable obstacle into an opportunity to strengthen your character. To the Stoics, human beings are simply a part of the greater whole, what they called the cosmos, or nature. They believed this nature was inherently rational and perfectly ordered. Everything that happens within it occurs for a specific reason and serves the common good, even if we don't always grasp the underlying logic. Within this worldview, death isn't a tragic, abrupt ending. Rather, it is a natural process of transformation. We are made of the very same atoms as the stars. After death, these atoms simply return to the universal cycle, ready to become something new, perhaps a blade of grass, a tree, or another living creature. There is profound ecological wisdom and deep comfort in this idea. We don't vanish without a trace. We merely change form. To stop fearing death is to fully trust this natural process. It is to recognize that we are simply returning home, back into the very bosom of the universe from which we first emerged. Now let's be honest and clear about something. While the phrase, "death smiles at everyone," all a man can do is smile back, perfectly captures the essence of Marcus Aurelius' philosophy, you won't actually find it word for word in his Meditations. It gained its massive popularity thanks to the film Gladiator, spoken by the protagonist, Maximus. Does this mean our whole discussion has been based on a deception? Absolutely not. This quote is a brilliant distillation of the Stoic attitude toward death. It is the exact conclusion you inevitably draw after reading Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus. So, even though the authorship is purely cinematic, the wisdom contained in that phrase is genuinely Stoic. The fact that it resonates so strongly with millions of people proves that these ancient ideas remain profoundly relevant even today. If accepting the inevitable is the first step, then the next, far higher level is what we call Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. While this concept was popularized by the 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, its roots run deep into Stoicism. Amor Fati is far more than simply putting up with reality. It is the passionate desire that everything that happens exactly as it does. This means embracing not just the good, but the bad as well, the pain, the losses, the disappointments, and ultimately, death itself. You accept these things not as evils, but as necessary components of the beautiful and tragic tapestry of existence. It means saying a resounding yes to all of life, embracing every single peak and valley. To simply smile back at death is an act of acceptance, but to actively cherish your mortality, to see it as the essential condition that makes life precious, that is the true essence of Amor Fati. This is the ultimate display of spiritual mastery. Consider this. Many of our everyday anxieties are actually the fear of death in disguise. Fear of public speaking. We dread judgment, which our minds perceive as social death. Fear of losing your job. We worry about losing status and our livelihood, a direct threat to our survival. Fear of relationship failure. We fear loneliness, which the subconscious associates with vulnerability. And ultimately, demise. The fear of death is like the final boss in a video game, generating countless smaller fear minions. Stoic philosophy suggests that instead of fighting every minion individually, we should go straight for the boss. When you confront this ultimate existential fear and learn to smile back at it, all those smaller fears immediately lose their power over you. That is how you become a truly courageous person. What does it truly mean to live a good life? For the Stoics, the answer isn't measured by the length of years we spend on earth. As the great Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, life is like a play. It's not the length, but the excellence of the acting that matters. To face death with acceptance means focusing not on the duration of your existence, but on the quality of your performance in the role you were given. It means living in such a way that when the final curtain falls, you have no regrets about the way you played your part, that you can stand firm and declare, I made full use of the time I was given. I strived to be a good person. I loved, I learned, and I never shied away from difficulty. When you live with this mindset, the question, when will I die, loses all its urgency. The only question that truly matters becomes, how am I living? This is the singular focus that defines everything. For the Stoic, your legacy is not measured in monuments or wealth, but in a virtuous life well lived, a life that serves as an enduring example for everyone around you. The Stoic approach to death isn't the only one. It's fascinating to compare it with others. For instance, the Epicureans, another influential ancient philosophical school, also sought to free people from the fear of death, but they did so differently. Their core argument was this: while we exist, death is not present. When death is present, we no longer exist. So what is there to fear? This is a logical, rational approach designed specifically to soothe the mind. Many religions, meanwhile, offer belief in an afterlife, heaven, or reincarnation, which serves as a powerful source of comfort. The Stoic path, however, is neither a logical trick nor a promise of eternal life. It is a path of courageous acceptance of reality as it is. A Stoic doesn't say, death isn't scary because I won't be there. Instead, he says, death is a part of nature, and I will meet it with dignity because I can control my own attitude. This path is not for those seeking consolation, but for those seeking strength. So let's bring all these threads together. The final smile that the Stoics encourage us to find is a complex cocktail of several key elements. It includes understanding, a deep comprehension of the laws of nature and our specific place within them. It includes acceptance, the conscious refusal to wage a pointless war against the inevitable. It includes courage, the genuine ability to look fear squarely in the eye without flinching. It includes focus, a fierce concentration on what truly matters in life, the quality of our actions, not the sheer quantity of our days. And finally, it includes freedom, that paramount human freedom to choose our response to any circumstance, no matter how severe. This smile is not meant for death. It will not change the fundamental fact that life is finite. This smile is meant for us. It changes how we live every day leading up to the end. And that is the ultimate secret Marcus Aurelius left behind. We began with a quote that initially seemed dark and fatalistic. Now I hope we finish with the realization that it's actually one of the most powerful and inspiring perspectives on how to live. Death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back. This isn't really about death, it's about life. It's a call to wake up, stop procrastinating on our dreams, stop fearing the small things, and start living with courage, purpose, and dignity. What a twist! It turns out the main secret to conquering the fear of death isn't finding a way to live forever. It's using the thought of death as fuel for a vibrant, meaningful, and virtuous life. Right now, smiling back at the inevitable isn't passive resignation. It's an active choice. The choice to live a life without regrets. Thank you for spending this time with me, reflecting on this profound idea. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss future doses of wisdom for modern life. And now, I have a question for you. What is one small but courageous thing you can do today, knowing that your time is finite? Write your answer in the comments below. Let's inspire each other.